I'm back. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. If you have not already subscribed, go ahead and do that below. But today, we're discussing the Brooklyn Nets' most intriguing free agent and also one of its longest tenured players on the roster, Spencer Dinwiddie. Now, not only is Spencer Dinwiddie an intriguing Brooklyn Nets free agent, he's also one of the best free agents in this 2021 free agent class. And he's coming off the books from a team that's already well into the tax. To be transparent, I had this whole big long intro about what Spencer Dinwiddie's looking for, a starting role, money, and then he went on Howard Beck's podcast and said this.
For all the fans that think like, because I opted out, like I have to leave or something like that. No, this is very much like in the Nets' hands. You feel me? Like it's a situation where, and I think my full max like 5'196" or something like that. And nobody's sitting here saying I'm gonna get 5'196". So before anybody tries to kill me, nobody's saying that. But the Nets have the ability to do something that other people can't. Yeah. If the Nets come to the table like that and they're being aggressive and they're saying, hey, we got 5'125" for you, like I would say there's a high likelihood that I go back to the Nets. You know what I mean? But if they don't come to the table and they're like, oh, we're gonna give you a 3 for $60, well, anybody can do that.
Let me start here. Spencer Dinwiddie is a very smart dude, a masterful marketer, and experts predict that he'll get somewhere in the ballpark of 4 years, $80 million. So here's the hook, line, and sinker of this video. I don't think Spencer Dinwiddie will be back with the Nets. Right now, it just seems improbable that both sides, Spencer Dinwiddie and the Brooklyn Nets, will meet in the middle. That's just my read on the situation. I'm not going to get into whether he should or shouldn't be back. So if you disagree with that opinion, that's cool. This is just my read on the situation, so I'm not really gonna go more into it. Obviously, losing a player of Spencer Dinwiddie's caliber is untenable, so the Nets need to get something in return. Which brings us into today's topic, a sign-and trade. A good sign-and trade requires precision, accuracy, confidence, and these are things you should want when shaving below the belt. Which brings us to today's sponsor. Manscaped, the best a man can get in grooming, just launched their latest state-of-the-art trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. One thing you don't want to do when shaving down there is cut yourself. And that's why Manscaped designed the Lawnmower 4.0 with a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce accidents. This baby is waterproof for those that like to shave in the shower. It's wireless with 90 minutes of power on a full charge. I mentioned precision earlier. The Lawnmower 4.0 allows you to customize your trim with guard lengths 1 through 4. The Lawnmower 4.0's travel lock is built for those always on the go, and it features a 400K LED spotlight. To get your hands on the Lawnmower 4.0 and other men's grooming tools, head to manscaped.com and use my code MattBrooksNBA for 20% off and free shipping. That's manscaped.com, my code MattBrooksNBA for 20% off and free shipping. Because like a good sign and trade, when shaving down there, you don't want to f this up. Now, basically how this would work is that the Nets would sign Spencer Dinwiddie to a multi-year deal and then trade him to a destination that he signs off on. And in return, the Brooklyn Nets would receive an asset of some sort. That asset could be a trade exception or a role player that greatly fits into what the Nets are building next season. Oh, one last thing. I see no reason for a team with cap space to lose an asset in a sign and trade for Spencer Dinwiddie when they can just sign him outright. A couple of teams come to mind in this scenario. The New York Knicks and their $72.8 million of possible cap room come to mind in this scenario, and the Knicks have already been linked to Spencer Dinwiddie according to the New York Post's Brian Lewis, provided they don't go through with the Colin Sexton trade, which we'll see. The Miami Heat also come to mind, and they can create $28.1 million of possible cap room, provided they decline the team options of Andre Iguodala and Goran Dragic. And then finally, the Dallas Mavericks, who according to the New York Daily News' Christian Winfield also have interest in Spencer Dinwiddie, could create cap room by letting Tim Hardaway Jr. walk, or they could salary dump Dwight Powell and or Josh Richardson, provided he picks up his $11.9 million player option. I think that second option is way more realistic. Let's get into some sign and trades. It was reported by Christian Winfield of the New York Daily News that Dinwiddie was interested in a homecoming with the LA Clippers or the Los Angeles Lakers. Which makes sense, Dinwiddie is an LA native and a very vocal one at that. A sign and trade that I like quite a bit brings Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to Brooklyn. Look, KCP didn't exactly have a great playoff run, but on a team like the Nets with more shooting, or compared to the Lakers, significantly more shooting, I bet KCP's percentages shoot up closer to that 41% we saw in last year's regular season. On the other side of the ball, he'd come in and almost immediately become one of Brooklyn's better defenders. His work in the 2020 NBA Finals while guarding the dribble handoff magic of Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson still stands out in my mind. And I'll touch on this more as we get closer to free agency, but the Nets could always use more 3-and-D wings. KCP would be a great get. These next 3 deals were actually proposed by a Clippers fan on Twitter, so shout out to you, Sam. And I honestly like really any of the first 3. Zubac is exactly the type of center the Nets need, a rim-protecting, rim-running center that can diversify Brooklyn's coverages in the postseason. Patrick Beverley is an absolute pest, and for those keeping up with this year's playoffs, you'll know that Beverley was absolutely incredible while guarding Devin Booker and Chris Paul in the Western Conference Finals. There's a chance the Clippers are grooming Beverley's replacement in Terrence Mann, so a Dinwiddie-Beverley swap makes sense for both teams. And then finally, Marcus Morris can shoot the cuff off the ball, and he can at least somewhat alleviate the burden of guarding big wings from the shoulders of Jeff Green, provided he's back. Plus, Morris can create for himself a little bit on face-ups. He's probably the best player of the 3. Let's touch on one more deal that has been thrown around the internet quite a bit. ESPN's Bobby Marks proposed Chicago as a destination for Spencer Dinwiddie, and in return, the Nets would receive former Net Thaddeus Young. His best skills are short roll playmaking and his super trusty floater. And although those things certainly come in handy, they do overlap with existing players on the roster. Now, as I mentioned before, losing Spencer Dinwiddie for absolutely nothing is untenable, so getting a player back as talented as Thad Young in a sign and trade is a total win for the Nets. Let's touch on some other deals I've seen proposed on social media. Boston is in need of a point guard after trading away Kemba Walker, and a sign and trade for Marcus Smart could make some sense in theory. Dinwiddie could add some much needed rim pressure and playmaking into Boston's offense, whereas Smart, meanwhile, is one of the best defenders in the entire league. He operates well within the pick and roll as a ball handler, and he can sort of shoot. I'd be pretty surprised if the Celtics went for this deal, to be honest, given that Boston appears pretty hellbent on retaining him, but hey, you never know. I mentioned Dallas as a team before that could create room to sign Dinwiddie straight up, and because of that, I don't see Dallas trading away Dorian Finney-Smith, one of the team's only 3-and-D players, on an absolutely bargain bin 3-year, $12 million contract. Maxi Kleber, on the other hand, is a different story. Kleber had a little bit of a down year as a Maverick, recording the lowest block percentage of his career. Granted, he was one of the many Mavericks players that dealt with COVID, and he battled Achilles issues the entire season. And although he doesn't fit a need for the Nets per se as a switch big that can shoot threes and not much else, he is a really good player provided he can get back to his 2019-2020 form. All right, saving the weirdest for last. I'm going to throw out a hypothetical. Let's say Mike Conley leaves the Jazz this offseason to go to a bigger market team with cap space. You know, some of the teams that we've mentioned, Miami, New York, Dallas, if they were to create some room in the ways I mentioned. Utah would suddenly be left without a starting point guard. Enter Spencer Dinwiddie. And in return for Dinwiddie, I have, drumroll please, Joe Ingles. Fresh off leading the entire league in true shooting and shooting a blistering hot 41% from 3 in the playoffs. Now, Ingles is a fun player because not only can he shoot the rock, he can also lead the pick and roll dance pretty credibly. Ingles' defense has declined a little bit, but he's such a good shooter that this is one of the rare situations where I would actually think about moving Joe Harris in a future deal, just because those two would occupy the same role. And plus, it was indicated by the Action Network's Matt Moore that Utah would be at least somewhat open to dealing Joe Ingles, so this isn't that out of left field. I told y'all this one was crazy. I'm leaving with a bang. Speaking of that, let me know which one of these deals was your favorite, or if I missed any of them, let me know below. And thank you again to Manscaped for sponsoring this video. But with that, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe, and go ahead and share this on Twitter and Reddit. God, it feels good to do that again. Of course, follow me on Twitter. The link is below. And stay tuned. I've got 2 other videos in the works to be posted on this channel to prep us for the start of free agency. Those will be posted in the coming weeks. But that's all I've got today, folks. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Peace!